It reckons I've got something in front of me. Look. Walking back to a grave, standing there, but no one else is being picked up. Picking up that cross there, just because it's the only thing that is sort of that distance from the back of my car. It's interesting that in that previous graveyard, there was also a cross similar to that, but it was a Celtic cross. So potentially it saw it as a person, whereas this is actually a cross.
It's a person. Comes up as a person. Oh, the shape it walked.
People have been claiming for years that Teslas can see ghosts in cemeteries. And honestly, as someone who owns a Tesla, lives in Tasmania, and has always been fascinated by history, ghost stories, and the unexplained, I had to find out for myself. What I wasn't expecting was to spend the next few days driving around cemeteries, investigating a haunted bin bag, and accidentally cloning my mum. Hey everyone, it's Meredith Castles here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at one of the internet's stranger technology mysteries, the Tesla ghost phenomenon. For years, people have been posting videos claiming their Teslas can see people in cemeteries where nobody appears to be standing. Sometimes they're standing still, sometimes they move, and every single time they're really creepy. Now, I wasn't content to just sit at home and watch other people investigate it. I wanted to know whether it would happen here. So I took my Tesla to some of Tasmania's oldest cemeteries and set out to see what I could find. And what started as a simple test quickly turned into something much stranger. So let's start at the beginning. Before we go any further, I should probably explain that I'm not exactly a neutral observer when it comes to things like this. I'm a technologist. I teach and research technology for a living, but I'm also a lifelong fan of horror, ghost stories, strange mysteries, and anything that makes you stop and ask what on earth is going on here. I grew up watching The X-Files. I had an I Want to Believe poster on my wall as a teenager. I mean, who didn't? I love horror games, I love ghost stories, and if you've spent any time on this channel at all, you'll know that I have a soft spot for the weird and unexplained. Living in Tasmania also means living among layers of history. Some of these cemeteries date back to the earliest days of European settlement. So when I started seeing videos online claiming that Teslas could see ghosts in cemeteries, I was intrigued. Before we start driving around cemeteries, it's worth understanding what we're actually looking at. Tesla Vision uses cameras and machine learning to help build a picture of the world around the vehicle. It's constantly identifying objects, people, cars, cyclists, obstacles, and making thousands of tiny decisions every second about what it thinks it's seeing. And that's where things start to get interesting. So, I recruited 2 furry research assistants and set off on what could only be described as a cemetery crawl. So the fluffy research assistants and I are on a cemetery crawl today. Come along. Our first stop was St. Luke's Anglican Cemetery in Richmond. Nothing. Then St. John's Catholic Cemetery. Nothing. Then Cornelian Bay Cemetery. Nothing. Sunny weather, nothing. Overcast weather, nothing. Different times of the day, still nothing. At this point, I was beginning to suspect that the Tesla ghost phenomenon had decided not to haunt Tasmania. And honestly, I was getting a little disappointed. It wasn't until I reached Cornelian Bay Cemetery that something finally happened. Or at least I thought something happened. Then I found what I was convinced was a ghost, or a haunted bin bag. Mostly a haunted bin bag. The Tesla kept detecting something near this particular rubbish bin, and for a brief moment I thought maybe I'd actually found something unusual. Then I realised the mysterious apparition was in fact the bin, which is significantly less exciting. Still, it gave me an idea. Maybe I needed another test subject. So I recruited my parents, more specifically my mum. Now, my mum doesn't really believe in ghosts. She enjoys a good ghost story, she'll happily scare herself silly, but she doesn't actually believe ghosts are wandering around cemeteries, which made her reactions all the more entertaining.
Oh, stop it.
Okay, just hold. What happened next was unexpected. The Tesla started detecting mum in multiple places at once. Apparently one mum wasn't enough. The Tesla decided there should be several. And that's when things started to get really interesting. What the At this point, we were almost done. But then I had one final thought. What if it wasn't the cemetery? What if it was the lighting? So we headed back to St. Luke's Anglican Cemetery in Richmond. And Richmond has always had a special place in my memory. When I was younger, my friends and I loved ghost stories. And one night we drove out to this exact cemetery. Not to cause trouble, just to scare ourselves. Because when you drive up that hill in complete darkness with no street lights and gravestones looming either side of the car, it's genuinely scary. So if any cemetery was going to produce a ghost, this felt like the one. And finally, something happened. The Tesla began detecting people where no people existed. Not once, not twice,
Stop it.
but repeatedly.
But I'll try and take it off. Let me do it.
Oh, there's somebody walking. It was just starting to happen again.
I know.
And the really interesting thing was that it wasn't every gravestone. It was specific gravestones, the same gravestones, over and over again. Now we finally had something we could test. Because if the same gravestones kept producing the same result, maybe we're not looking at a random glitch. Maybe we're looking at a pattern. Once I started paying attention to the gravestones triggering the detections, something stood out. They weren't random. Many of them had surprisingly human-looking silhouettes. Rounded tops, narrow bodies, shapes that, at a glance, look surprisingly similar to a standing person. And once I noted that, it became very difficult to ignore. Maybe there was something about the shapes that Tesla's computer vision system found particularly convincing.
It's which
It's
is
gonna
this.
walk.
It's
Yeah,
this
it's
one
walk.
here.
Yeah.
Now it's this one.
Look. It's got head, shoulders.
Humans don't just recognise shapes, we recognise context. We know that we're standing in a cemetery. We know what gravestones look like. A machine doesn't understand context quite the same way. It sees patterns, edges, shadows, shapes, and then it makes a best guess. Most of the time, those guesses are incredibly accurate. And every now and then, though, something unusual slips through. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. So what did we learn? Well, after driving around a lot of cemeteries, confusing a bin for a ghost and accidentally cloning my mum, I think we got an answer. Can Teslas mistake old gravestones for people? Absolutely. Can Teslas see ghosts? Probably not. As for whether there was actually a ghost in that graveyard, who knows? That's not really what I set out to investigate. Maybe that's a topic for a future video though. I had an X-Files I Want to Believe poster on my wall from about the ages of 14 to 16. And despite a lifelong fascination with mysteries, I've never personally seen anything I'd call proof. Not yet. What I can say is that in this case, the evidence points pretty strongly towards computer vision, pattern recognition, and a Tesla trying its best to make sense of the world around it. And honestly, I think that's pretty fascinating too. Because what I found wasn't evidence of the paranormal. It was evidence of something else entirely. A machine trying to interpret places filled with history, memory, and a very human-shaped object. And every now and then, getting it wrong. Although the haunted bin bag still remains under investigation.
See in front. See, it reckons I've got something in front of me. Look.
Oh, stop it.
Okay, just hold on. So it reckons it's right here.